question first to ask is how we study war. We study it in its history, its politics, its strategies, its weaponry, victories won and lives lost. And for what? Why do we study war? Why do we study anything? We study it to gain knowledge. Knowledge that we didn't have before, so that we can evolve and move up, find different and perhaps better solutions for things. But I think that, if anything, war shows us that history does repeat itself, whether we try and learn or not. So is studying war really beneficial? Let's hear what the UWO students have to say.
People strive to have everybody remember because it has such a huge negative impact. If we forget what war has done in the past, we're much more liable to go down that path again. So Remembrance Day serves as a way for to sort of encourage everybody to remember how terrible war is, even though we're not thinking about it as much as we should, to try to prevent it in the future.
To remember all the lives that were lost and just remember what those people went through, and you kind of put yourself in their shoes and just think of history.
I think we study war because we want to learn from our mistakes, especially in terms of how we can avoid it and how we can prevent it in the future.
Hopefully to learn from it and from what happened, and so for history not to repeat itself, but it's not working.
I think it's very important to know the past to plan for the present and look towards the future of changing your ways and learning from your mistakes.
I think it's really important to study war. As a history major, I've learned how different tactics work. War is sometimes inevitable, and sometimes it has to come to it, which is disappointing. But in a world like today, hopefully in the future, it'll be eliminated.
We study war so that we can improve on it, make it less likely, make it less likely that it's going to happen again. I like to think that the rate of innocent casualties in wars are dropping. The rates of soldier trauma is dropping. I don't know the facts, but I like to think that, and I like to think that's why we study war.
We study it so that we can avoid that in the future.
They say that we study it so that we don't repeat our mistakes that were made in the past, but over time I think that we forget. We might remember it, but we don't really remember it. It doesn't register with us, and our generation, the majority of us haven't experienced any pain, anything that the past generations during war have, so therefore we don't have the morals, the same morals and the same understanding as the people in the past would have, because we haven't been through the experiences. So how can you learn and remember something that you weren't even there for?
To learn from the past mistakes, you can learn a lot of strategy that can be applied into business. Back in history, China's wars have been used for a lot of philosophy, art of war, but mostly to learn from our mistakes and make sure we don't repeat them again.
So we can learn from the past mistakes and improve and figure out ways that we can work, the countries can work together to avoid wars and sometimes to punish countries by war.
I guess what my professor said the other day about how with the troops, and this is the day to remember them, and we're supposed to support the troops, but even if you don't support the war, you're expected to support the troops. So I don't know, I think it's a hard question to ask, that we should be calling these people heroes and everything, even though we don't agree with what they're doing, but yet still we have to worship them. So I don't know.
So the responses that I heard tended towards believing that while war isn't necessary, it is inevitable, which I have to agree with. But it's a sad truth, because if war is inevitable, then we inevitably need people fighting for it and willing to die for it. And that's difficult from someone who is standing here not involved with the war and unable to support the cause. And what happens when we don't support the cause, but we have to support our countrymen over there fighting for that cause? I guess it all comes down to the belief that if there's something worth living for, it's worth dying for. But I think that if it's worth dying for, then it's certainly worth living for. And that's the catch-22 with war. And it is something that will continue on and perpetuate throughout history. So I guess what I want to do next is find out how close and personal war is to some people. Do we have direct relatives in it? Are we affected indirectly? Let me know.
Yes, a friend of a friend has actually been to Afghanistan, and he served at a base, and he was in active duty.
No, I don't.
I'm from Palestine. My father survived when he was young. He survived the war. I've experienced war through my family.
I don't think I know anyone personally, but I guess through other friends and family, I could say I do.
Just some family members, some uncles.
I have a friend over actually in Afghanistan right now. So he's doing a lot of just kind of missions and building up the communities there.
I have two really good friends that are in the U.S. Marines. So they're over in Iraq right now and in Afghanistan.
My grandfather was there in the partition between India and Pakistan in 1947. And I've heard some stories there about him having to, pretend to be a different race to escape from one country to another country, like genocide, things like that. And it's just testament that this stuff happens all around the world, not just in North America, right?
No, but I do play a lot of war-related video games, so I feel like I've got a good understanding of the dynamics.
Both my grandfathers did, yeah.
I have a few friends who are in Afghanistan right now, actually, with the Canadian infantry.
Yeah, I have a friend in the States who is in Iraq right now. He's done a few tours, and he keeps going back. I don't know why, but he does.
So it didn't really seem like very many people are directly affected or know someone who is directly in the war, either in Iraq or Afghanistan. And we do have relatives who were in wars of the past, but I think that, as one respondent said, we need to focus on the present, our present situations. And I think it's a good thing that here in Canada, we aren't really affected as perhaps if I was asking respondents in the United States whether or not they had relatives involved. And I think that that's optimistic. I like that Canada has that more peaceful outlook on life. But in the end, there will always be war around us. There will always be that violent aggression that we need, or we think we need, to solve problems. Whether it is possible for the outcome of war to be peace is debatable. But I think that it can be best summed up by Martin Luther King. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can. And hate cannot drive out hate, only love can.